Pop culture pastor.
It's a strange place to be, to say that the ethical commentator in pop culture of this generation and the previous generation, like millennials, is South Park. South Park is like the ethical commentator of our generation.
That's who I go to.
It's super vulgar, but it's actually, what they do is kind of intelligent, because it's a form of critical thought. Actually, it's critical comedy, and they go after everybody.
Yeah.
They go after religion. They go after Hollywood. They go after culture, society, politics. They go after everything. And it's usually right on the button.
It's kind of scary.
It is. And I just thought about that. It just dawned on me today that, like, maybe The Daily Show kind of had that for a while with Jon Stewart, where they were like the ethical critical commentator of the day.
Yeah, and he has a show on Apple that evidently the most recent episode, people are like, whoa, Jon Stewart's woke. And Jon Stewart's like, evidently I'm woke. I didn't know this, except if you mean woke means knowing your history, then yeah, I guess I am woke.
Jon Stewart's kind of refreshingly non-political. And by what I mean is, and that's probably not the right word, he's refreshingly not partisan.
Yeah.
Meaning he's not a Democrat and he's not a Republican. He tends to be at odds with both of those at some time or another. He's just like standing up for things he believes in and thinks what's right. And as long as people are doing that, I'm okay with them, you know? Even if we disagree on certain things, I'm okay with, like, hey, I'm glad you're standing up for what you think is right.
You do you.
Because we're going to get into this later on when we talk about some other things, but I think most people say that's what they're doing, but really what they're standing up for is their own self-righteousness, not what's right. And, and I think that's a lot of a problem with our culture, but
it's all vanities.
Yeah, that's what Solomon said.
And Cody.
Cody, circa end of March 2022, although it'll be April 1st by the time people get to hear this, or 2nd, perhaps. I don't know what day it is.
It'll be the 1st.
Welcome. This is Pop Culture Pastor. Boy, we really struggled to come up with a topic this week. Nothing happened in the pop culture world for us to talk about, right?
Not much.
Was there anything? We're being a little facetious. We're going to talk about, I guess, what everyone else is talking about, hopefully in a different kind of way, since we are ministers who love pop culture. But we got to talk about Will Smith and Chris Rock and all of that.
Everybody hates Chris.
Everyone does hate comedians now. Like, that's pretty universal, but we don't want to jump the gun on that either, because that's a topic that we can get into.
I was just referencing his show and the theme song.
I know that, Cody.
Done by Luda.
Look, you didn't have to explain that. Our listeners are smart. They give you credit.
I don't know if our listeners watched.
You look at me.
The Chris Rock sitcom.
You're good enough. You're smart enough, and doggone it, people like you. Welcome to Pop Culture Pastor. This is our podcast about things that happen in pop culture world. We're just big nerds, big geeks. Usually that leads us to talk about geeky things, but we also talk about things just going on in the pop culture environment. And we like to do that, and so here we are. It's our pod, and you should know that we've got a tournament of tournaments winding down. We're down to it.
Yeah.
To crown the best comic book movie of all time, we have voted through every round, and now it's down to 2.
Okay.
The Dark Knight versus The Dark Knight Rises was the Final Four matchup in the DC Independent bracket. We talked about that last week, how that was sort of surprising. Didn't expect to see Dark Knight Rises there. We lost some biggies early in that bracket that kind of paved the way for this matchup.
The most ridiculous upset in the history of this tournament.
But that's what happens in the tournament sometimes.
Scott Pilgrim, rest in peace.
Yeah, poor Scott Pilgrim, victim of a first round upset.
I am pouring one out for Scott Pilgrim versus the world.
Pouring one out.
A drink offering, if you will, in biblical terms.
Us and our homies. Dark Knight, after all the votes are tallied, wins 78-5 over the Dark Knight Rises.
So early on, it was like 3-1. And I was like, who is voting for the Dark Knight Rises?
I'll tell you who. I did.
Over the Dark Knight.
I did.
How dare you?
Do I get to explain myself?
I mean, you can try.
I think the Dark Knight Rises story is a superior story. I think it's superior crafted. I think the Dark Knight is carried by a great performance, but the story is jumbled. It's kind of chaotic. And I think the Dark Knight Rises is just a better structured story from beginning to end.
There's a lot of drama with, will the rich people blow up the boat full of prisoners, vice versa? What's going to happen? Oh, it doesn't happen because
It's a very good
Batman.
movie. They're both good movies. And if I'm picking one that I want to watch, I'll watch The Dark Knight. But in this, I mean, and I knew Dark Knight was going to win anyways, so I just thought, well, maybe I'll think about this differently.
I still say my favorite Batman scene is in The Dark Knight Rises. So
There you go. Yeah, that's true. You talk about that scene a lot.
break the bat.
Yeah, you love it. Dark Knight moves on. The Dark Knight has a shot here to be the best comic book movie of all time. Who will it go up against?
I'm fearful.
We had Avengers Endgame and Spider-Man No Way Home.
I feel this one had to be closer.
45-28.
Okay.
Wasn't as close as I thought it would be. We got this last matchup's going to be real close, I think. Avengers Endgame takes it over Spider-Man No Way Home. So Avengers Endgame and Dark Knight will meet in the finals.
I voted for Spider-Man.
I also voted for Spider-Man. We talked about this last week. I think Infinity War is a superior movie to Endgame.
Yeah. In game, you just have a couple big moments, and it's the culmination of that phase of Marvel.
But now we got to move on though, because now we're just moving on, and now it's those big moments that carry Endgame against the Dark Knight
And
that has a
Heath
big performance.
Ledger.
Yeah,
And
this is going to be hard.
Sir Michael Caine, Christian Bale, Gary Oldman, Aaron Eckhart,
failed you. I failed you, Master Wayne.
Morgan Freeman. I mean, look, I'm just rambling off. Grade A performances left and right, people.
In the Dark Knight,
Yeah.
but just the Dark Knight.
And that's where it's going to end.
Oh, so Cody is a favorite. I mean, Dark Knight's really good. I'm so conflicted. I'm so conflicted because Endgame wouldn't have been the movie I'd have handpicked to go up against the Dark Knight. And so now I'm like leaning Dark Knight. But the moments of Endgame are, again, no movie has the moments that Endgame has at the end.
I will say the second best like scene in a Batman movie, the Joker doing his pencil trick, magic trick. That one, I had a visceral reaction in the theater watching it. I'm like, oh my goodness, he did it.
Cody's like, I wet myself a little bit, just a little bit.
Like our theater that we normally watch movies at, like no one is ever like, oh wow, that just happened. But yet it was nearly to capacity and everyone had that reaction.
But do we? I don't know, man. But the theater, I mean, depending on what theater you were in for Endgame, people had pretty visceral reactions.
I had a grown man sobbing the last 30 minutes. So, right,
No,
right next
come
to
on.
me.
Was he a big guy? Not the big guy.
No, I mean, he was built like me, maybe even a little bit more narrow. And then, like, my wife's sitting right next to me, and she's crying off and on during that time. But this dude just sobbing. If I had Kleenexes, I would have given them to him.
Well, he had his own things going on. I mean, maybe you didn't see. He had some of his own stuff.
I mean, this dude, hadn't seen
his
that.
Dog died, maybe.
I hadn't seen that many tears in a movie showing since The Passion of the Christ.
Oh, man. I thought you were going to say like Steel Magnolias or something.
Terms of endearment.
The Titanic. Oh, Jack, never let go. Oh, man.
Pretty close.
That's funny. I do remember a lot of people crying at Endgame.
The Notebook.
When, spoiler, Tony Stark dies. Gives himself up to snap everything back and possibly break the multiverse. We don't know yet. That he could have had something to do with that.
Well, thanks a lot, Tony.
So that's the matchup. Who are you going to vote for? We will put this poll up Saturday. I will try to remember this time because I've been bad about that. And I will be out of town all weekend, but I'll try to get on my phone because it's just one poll.
Just one.
We're just down to one poll. The Dark Knight versus Endgame. Who's it going to be? What's the best comic book movie of all time? Don't take this vote lightly. Put some thought into it.
Again,
this is serious business.
If I need to call my friend Sean Peacemaker Combs.
The P in P. Diddy stands for peace. Combs. we're jumping too far ahead, Cody.
I'm just saying, vote or die.
Oh, man. I mean, we keep jumping ahead because it's almost impossible to have created a scenario in our heads that would have been any more pleasing as far as like what things we like to talk about than this thing that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. But again, I was just referencing his vote or die campaign. Rock the vote. Whatever you have to do to click for your favorite comic book movie.
Yep. The vote's coming out Saturday. Look for it on our Facebook page or Twitter page. Man, if you don't follow us, could you please follow us?
That'd be
Listeners,
nice.
That would be great. That would be great. We need more interaction from everybody. We post some things, and we got some swag coming real soon to raise some money. We're going to be at Planet Comic Con in Kansas City, April 22nd through the 24th. So, and we need to raise money for that booth because, golly, it was expensive.
We're coming for you, Zach Morris.
Zach Morris is going to be there, and us. So, among others. Apparently, also. Booker T.
Yeah. And
not his brother, though. We're not getting Harlem Heat.
no, we're not getting Stevie Ray.
No Stevie Ray, just Booker T.
And Sergeant Slaughter.
That's a weird tag team. There's just a strange tag team there.
I am so excited. Like if Hacksaw was going to be there, I would be waiting in line right now.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Poll comes out Saturday. Make sure and vote. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going out to the lobby. That's right. It's time for the lobby. We're going to come back and answer your questions, listener questions, when we come back in the lobby.
Welcome to the lobby.
Okay, welcome back. We are out in the lobby about to get some nachos. I love the nachos, Cody. I'm so hungry.
I just ate, so we're good.
Yeah, and we've got questions, lots and lots of questions from listeners this week. Kyle Kessinger, good old Kyle. He asks, how do you feel about the upcoming Rob Zombie Munsters movie? From what I've seen, it looks like he's put a lot of effort into it. I gotta tell you, I don't know much about this other than I knew he was doing it. And I'm intrigued. Is he playing it like, is it supposed to be comedic, or is he putting a little little Rob Zombie into it?
I also did not know a lot about it, except that
I mean, he's made some trippy stuff as a
he
filmmaker.
has. Although some of the actors that are in it, I think, will make it funny, especially the guy that plays Grandpa.
Who's playing this? I'm looking at a picture of it right here.
Daniel Roebuck. He's in a lot of things.
Oh, yeah. Sherry Moon Zombie. Is that his wife, I take it?
Yes.
And Jeff Daniel Phillips. Who are these people?
You know who Mr. Garcia is.
Who's Mr. Garcia? Is this a Munsters character?
Well, no, like the actor. Keep scrolling.
Oh, no, I'm not. I'm looking at a picture of the three main guys. I got Grandpa Munster and Jorge Garcia. Oh, Hurley's in it from Lost.
Yes, he's Floop.
I don't know that character. See, the problem is I'm not as familiar with the Munsters as I am the Addams Family.
Okay, so I actually watched the Munsters as a kid because we had TV Land, and again, my parents made me watch some of this older stuff as we talked about off the air. And
it was safe television, wholesome.
I mean, yeah, it was fun.
But we don't have any indication of the tone.
And of course,
the characters look funny.
Yes.
They retain the look. You know what? I'm here for it. It's probably not a theater experience for me, but
I'll give it a shot because, I mean, the films Rob Zombie has produced, including his Halloween, it wasn't bad if you liked the genre. And so I think he'll put forth some good effort. And he also cast one of the former doctors of Doctor Who in it as Igor. So
who's that?
Sylvester McCoy. He's a doctor from the 80s. So
oh, wow. Okay.
Before my time, but yet I know who Sylvester McCoy is.
He's got an understated cast. No big stars.
Well, unless you are a big Doctor Who fan, and then Sylvester McCoy.
No big stars. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So Kyle, we're here for it. I wouldn't say we're like waiting in line to buy our tickets.
I have not set up my tent outside the movie theater.
But I'm intrigued. I'm interested. Danica Geisman wrote us a question. That would be Jason's wife. Jason he's been on the show and he often sends us questions. But this is a question about Jason.
Oh, snap.
So put it on your thinking cap.
Okay.
Danica says this. Jason and I are going to a wedding this Halloween and that we are encouraged to wear costumes.
Nice.
Who should Jason be? This is, I mean, does anything pop into your head immediately? Because I put a lot of thought into this.
I mean, I'm trying to narrow down a couple of costumes I'll let you go first.
I mean, I put a lot of thought into this, and I just kept coming back to Austin Powers. Jason as Austin Powers would be just wonderful. Mostly because because I think Jason could look like Mike Myers a little bit, and he could look good in that getup. And then, but I also want to hear Jason say, "Yeah, baby, yeah." I kind of want that to get it on video, especially. But yeah, I feel like Jason would make a great Austin Powers.
Oh, that was a good one.
I don't know. You get into this weird territory for a minister.
You do.
Because, his catchphrase is like, "Do I make you Randy, baby?"
So, like, I had a couple. He could go as, I believe it was one of his guilty pleasures, George of the Jungle.
Oh, yeah, that'd be a good one.
And, or I think he could do any role that Tom Hanks did because his demeanor.
Wow, you think Jason's a Tom Hanks guy?
Yeah.
Well, that's a pretty nice compliment. I think Jason would like that.
Hanksian.
Yeah, in that vein, I could totally see him as Chuck Noland from Castaway.
Yeah.
He could wear the loincloth
Have a volleyball.
with a spear with a crab on the end of it. That'd be a good costume for him.
I mean,
But it would help to know if we knew what Danica was going to be.
yes.
She weirdly does not ask us to think of a costume for her or like a joint.
Because I was going to
joint
say
costume, which
couples costumes, I have a lot more ideas.
it seems clear she already knows what she's going to be.
Because,
And
like,
apparently it's not a fembot to Jason's Austin Powers.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, right now, a lot of couples seem to be going as Peacemaker and Vigilante.
No one is doing that.
From the new
Stop
Peacemaker
it.
series.
Stop it. No one's doing that, right?
If she's going as Catwoman, he could be Batman.
Oh, okay. That'd be topical.
It would
Although,
be.
would it be by Halloween? See, then we'll all be talking about Thor, Love, and Thunder. They could be the Thors. There's going to be
Boom.
2 Thors, a male and a female Thor.
Well,
You could be Thors.
we have just solved your dilemma.
Problem solved. I would love to come and be Endgame chunky Thor. I would fit that to a T, I think. Noob Master.
I
I could
will.
bring Kane along to be Korg.
I will be Loki.
Okay. You're kind of Loki-ish.
I am.
You are the Loki to my fat Thor. Scott Patrick Dillon says Dave and Cody get a time machine. What year are you going to? What do you think?
So, like, initially when he asked that question, my mind went back to a Mad TV skit, the greatest action story ever told. And it was the Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, goes back to the life of Jesus and, like, tries to prevent him from being crucified.
Wow.
And so I'm like, I've already lived that one out. I probably don't need to go back to when Jesus is walking around. Otherwise, that would be a cool time. I mean, just for the pastor's sake in me. But then, like, I also need to know, is this like Doctor Who time travel where I can go any location?
we need some parameters.
Or is
it
this
Back to the Future?
where I'm stuck?
Because if it's from where I'm at and I'm going to be somewhere in Southeast Kansas, somewhere in time in Southeast Kansas, I'm probably going forward.
Yeah, we're going a ways in the future.
Like, you don't want to be in Kansas anytime before 100 years ago without penicillin. Like,
Yeah.
that's a problem.
You saw how all those settlers died on 1883? Repeat.
Yeah.
But with me, with less experience than the Germans that were trying to make it across with Tim McGraw.
People are not going to react well in the 1800s to my hoodie and Crocs.
Where's your boots?
They will kill me on sight. And I will not be able to stop them in any ways because I'm not trained for that sort of life. Yeah, so I'm going forward if we're talking Back to the Future style. If we're talking Doctor Who style,
Anywhere on the planet, then
I'm probably going back to 30 AD in Judea and in Israel, and I'm looking for Jesus
yeah.
because I want to follow him around. Because essentially that's what my life is now, but
Yeah.
figuratively, not literally, not yet.
Otherwise, I'm going back in time to my childhood and I'm picking up valuable things. And I'm going to try to biff the system.
Biff the system.
And get rich.
I'm going back in time to find Huey Lewis to tell him to write Back in Time. Gotta get back in time. Yeah, you're going to love it. Your grandchildren are going to love it. Anyways,
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I think we've sufficiently stamped out that question.
Yeah.
Stomped on it into dust. David Allen says, does the rain in Spain fall mainly on the plain?
I would say typically yes.
I'm at a loss. I'm not familiar with Spain's meteorological conditions
Well,
or their geographical, surfaces and the meteorological patterns within.
I mean, there is a lot of coastline.
We need to get local weatherman Doug Heddy on the pod for this one because I don't know.
Or the Spanish version of Doug Heddy.
I mean, I know he's playing around with a clever saying, and why would the saying be there if it didn't? If it didn't fall mainly on the plane, then that would be a dumb saying.
Name it and claim it.
All right. We're going to say yes.
Yeah. I said typically. So.
We're going to bet all our money on it like it's Final Jeopardy. Yes, it does. John Gio asks us, this is a minister question.
Oh,
we're getting
snap.
ministry. This is a Bible question.
Now I got to switch my thinking cap.
How does the Russian invasion of the Ukraine line up with biblical prophecy?
Ooh.
And can you refer to the verses to back your statement up? Do you want to take this one or do you want me to do it?
I'll let you get the first stab at it, and I'll
Okay.
do cleanup duty.
All right, here we go. It doesn't. The Bible probably has nothing to say about this specific conflict or many of the conflicts in the world other than that it says there will be wars and rumors of wars. We live in a broken world. This happens.
Ecclesiastes chapter 3, there's a time for war and a time for peace.
And it also says there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah. John, here's the thing. It's like everybody wants all these signs. They want, it's self-importance, right? We all want to think we're living in important times. And here's the thing. You are. It is the end times. Because Jesus, when he ascended, that was the beginning of the end times.
Yeah. I mean, Paul was preparing the people he was directly writing to for it. Us now reading Paul's literature and John the Revelator's literature, we should be preparing for it or prepared for it. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the Son of Man doesn't even know the hour of his coming again. Well, when he was on this side of life. But yes,
We have this obsession with Revelation
we do.
where we try to get in there and like figure out a code of some sort, like that like maybe John was seeing things that he didn't know what they were. But here's what you need to know about Revelation. You go back and read it again, but understand this general rule when you're reading it. This was a letter to the church then. And because of that, it can't mean to us what it didn't mean to them. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It was to them. It's for us still. There's stuff for us to glean from it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be God's word, right? It's for us, but it's not to us.
And if you're wondering, I do have issues with the Left Behind theology. So,
Oh boy.
but we won't open that can of worms. That's a longer discussion.
I have issues with the movies. Oy.
Yeah.
It's really bad. Really bad. Left Behind so bad. The movies. The books were fun.
I don't read, so. I do read. I don't read those books.
All right. This has been The Lobby. Make sure and follow our Facebook and Twitter pages and wait for the Lobby post to go up and then ask us questions on those posts.
They can be biblical. They can be pop cultural.
You can ask us anything. They can be personal.
You can ask how tall I am, and I might say I'm 6'6".
He wouldn't do that. 'Cause
From
he's
North
not
Carolina.
He wouldn't lie. North Carolina, Michael. Okay.
I'm just saying, I could say that. That would be a
You
fit.
could ask us literally anything. We stand ready to answer your questions and shout you out on our pod.
Yeah.
to literally tens and tens of peoples.
And you can tell your friends, listen to the pod. They answer my questions.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Good one. Yeah, you should do that. Do that. I got featured on this podcast.
Yeah.
You should listen. All right, we're going to get out of the lobby. When we come back, we're going to move into our main subject that we're talking about today. That's it. We're talking about the slap when we come back. Okay, welcome back. It's time for the main subject of the pod. Title of this pod is Celebrities Gone Wild. It was a big week for wild things happening. Should I set the stage?
I guess, if you want.
So there I was, Sunday night. My family had gone to bed. I'm working on some radio stuff, like on my laptop. And I'm old, so I don't like turn on streaming stuff. I like to turn on Hulu Live, just something on live television. Usually I'll go for like something like a Nick at Night, Friends or something old. But the Oscars were on, and I'm mildly interested in celebrity narcissism eating itself. And so I turned on the Oscars, and I'm sort of half watching it. And literally it hadn't been on but 5 minutes, and I'm sitting there, and Chris Rock comes out. And he's doing his Chris Rock thing, and I'm mildly interested in Chris Rock. He's interesting to me because he's from our generation, And so when Chris Rock comes out, I'm here for it. And he makes a couple bad jokes. Like, I don't mean bad like they were evil, just they weren't very good. And then just like offhand kind of says, like you can tell he's looking at Jada Pinkett Smith, Will Smith's wife, and he says something along the lines of about her next project. Really looking forward to G.I. Jane 2. The crowd groans because it's a stupid joke, like it's just a dumb joke.
It's very dated.
Yeah,
in its reference.
Well, yeah, like so if you're not over a certain age, you have no idea what he's talking about.
Because that movie was never on rerun.
No, and it's like you're talking about the early 90s and it were early to mid 90s, and it's a movie that it wasn't popular back then.
No.
It was not a good movie. It wasn't a huge movie. It was a failure. But it starred Demi Moore, who was hot, buff, and bald in this movie.
Or beautiful, as the kids would say. That instead of the word hot.
The kids say beautiful now? Or did they say she's fire?
She's lit.
She's lit. Anyways, she was kind of the flavor of that moment, right? Demi Moore?
Yes.
In a lot of ways. And she does this movie about a woman joining the military who shaves her head. Now, in the moment, I just thought, like that was a brutal joke. So dumb. Because Jada Pinkett Smith has shaved her head for years. And let's just get something on the table right now. Jada Pinkett Smith is gorgeous.
Very beautiful, yes.
Without hair. Okay? Gorgeous. All right? So the camera switches to Will, who's like kind of nervously chuckling, laughing along. They're doing that thing when what you have to understand about the Oscars is there's a roast mentality. So the Oscars, what I mean by roast mentality, kids, is not the way you use slang now, like, oh, that dude got roasted. It's similar, it's related. But a roast back in the 70s, the 1970s, was this thing where a bunch of celebrities would come together and they would have one honoree, someone so accomplished in whatever they did that they were the main honoree of the night, and they would sit in the middle of all these celebrities. Each celebrity would go up and they would just make fun of the honoree. And that was like, now I know that sounds weird to you. If you're like below the age of 25, you're like, what in the world?
Comedy Central overdid it in the aughts.
Yeah, they tried to bring it back, but it was terrible. Dean Martin did these back in the 70s. Dean Martin, part of the Rat Pack.
Roast Master.
Yeah, and it was just a thing back then. It was just what they did. They'd all get up, make fun of the honoree, and then the honoree would get the last laugh because he gets to stand up last and make fun of everyone who just made fun of him. And then they all hugged, shook hands, very inebriated usually by this time. And that was it. And it was fun for people. And the Academy Awards have kind of copied that atmosphere because it's a bunch of rich, famous people. And so people like to see rich, famous people get taken down a peg. Mm-hmm. They understand that. And so when I say there's a roast atmosphere, it's been that way for a long time.
And I mean, usually they choose someone that has a comedic background to host.
Oh, yeah. Well, and
present typically.
Yeah. And I want to say something else, but we'll get to that later because I don't think it's relevant yet. But so anyways, the kind of jokes Chris Rock's making, not super strange to the Academy Awards environment. So the camera switches back, and as I said, Will Smith nervously chuckling. But Jada's also in the picture, and she rolls her eyes, the big eye roll, the giant eye roll, and then the glare. And then we don't see what happens, but we assume Will sees this. Because the camera has now panned back to Chris, who starts to go on. He starts to say a couple things, and then all of a sudden he goes, uh-oh. And this is when it becomes apparent that Will Smith is walking up on the stage. And he's got a long ways to go. I mean, he probably takes like 15 steps to get to Will. And by this time, I'm glued in. I'm like, what's happening? Why is he going up on stage? Will Smith. And then he slaps him. Some people said, was this staged? As someone who's been hit before and has seen people get hit, that was not fake. That was a real hit. You could hear the impact. You could see the impact.
Although my friend Jerry Lawler said that him and Andy Kaufman did the same thing.
Jerry Lawler should give wrestlers credit that it takes a long time to really get that look right. And even wrestlers, when they're faking it, it's not perfect. So we're either left at a place where Chris Rock is an amazing pro wrestler.
I choose to believe that option.
It wasn't fake. And Will Smith slaps him and then turns around and starts walking back to his seat, leaving Chris Rock kind of dumbfounded. He says, wow, a couple times. Wow. But then he pulls it together nicely.
Like, not many people would rebound that quickly.
No. Chris Rock handled himself really kind of beautifully in that moment. Because then he's like, he looks off to the side as if to say, are we cutting or are we going forward? Are we still going to do this award? He's out there to give out the documentary award, which is like the most boring award of the night, next to the technical award.
Although, who won that award is not a boring person.
Who was it?
Questlove.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was the Roots.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're never going to remember that now.
I will.
He looks over. Clearly, they're going to go on. He says, "You just witnessed the best, the most amazing thing on live television ever," or something to that effect.
I mean, that's a stretch, but okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's up there. Never seen that before.
Not at
the Oscars.
Not at the Oscars.
I saw Jack Palance do one-arm push-ups once. But that wasn't as big as this.
Country Music Awards had when John Denver won, that one guy burnt up the nomination envelope and walked off the stage because he wasn't going to give that hippie an award. So, I mean, it's not uncommon.
I have never heard of that. That's amazing.
I'll send you a clip.
Oh, John, man, look at country. That's hardcore. So he goes back to his seat. Everybody's stunned. And then, but like it doesn't end there because Will is cursing loudly, which you didn't hear on the American broadcast. So I'm sitting there and it's just silent, but you can tell they're yelling. He's yelling at him. And I could read his lips and I knew enough of what he was saying to be like, oh, this is why we're not hearing anything.
My friends in Japan heard it all.
Yeah, elsewhere, the sound was not blocked out. All right. Anyways, everyone's pretty much aware of that. But I feel like we had to recap it.
Yeah.
What I found way more fascinating was the reaction. Well, first of all, let's talk about the reaction first. Let's talk about what everybody's reaction to that was before we get back to Will. The reaction is fascinating because it paints this picture of society and our culture right now, of where we're at, and boy, it's not a pretty picture.
We're very polarized.
I mean, is it possible to say, first of all, do we think Will's in fight or flight mode? Like the response is so extreme, and he's laughing one minute and the next minute he's mad and cursing and yelling and slapping. Like there was no in between there.
I mean, maybe.
I mean, I guess what I'm saying is it possible a lot of us are in fight or flight mode?
So my initial reaction after watching it, because I didn't watch it live, but I watched it within 2 minutes of it happening, and I watched the Japanese version where I could hear everything. So
did I.
For me, it was I don't know how Will Smith grew up.
In West Philadelphia.
Well,
born
know,
and raised.
I know that much, but
on the playground. That's where he spent most of his days, Cody.
But like, I don't know his family background. I don't know any traumas or any like terrific things that happened besides, he's rich and famous now and makes great movies at times and made some good music. And so like, there's a couple songs. And then I will go to the next thought, which was for a lot of us, and I imagine it was the same for celebrities, that COVID, when we went to the lockdown / restrictions, that it removed a lot of our least unhealthy escapes. Mm-hmm. So they're not totally healthy, but they're not that harmful. So if an escape for you might be, a couple times a month, we're going to go to the movies as a family, or we're going to go out to eat and sit down somewhere that's not in our home, treat the family to something nice. Well, that went away. Mm-hmm. So now you are just stuck with the reality, or you turn to the more harmful escapes. And I mean, the internet's chock full of them. But, and so I think a lot of us are still in a more heightened state. If we're not in fight or flight, we're like on the cusp of it. A lot of people that you would say were well grounded, that you wouldn't expect much to shake or rattle them, they're on the cusp. The people that were on the cusp before, they are in that heightened state of fight or flight. You say something, I'm going to respond immediately. And so a lot of us are there. And literally, my last thought as I'm watching this, because the reactions have started to pour in as I'm watching it, that award shows are just the worst.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because everybody's got an opinion, right? They're, like you said, they're pouring in, and immediately people are siding up. Mm-hmm. Right?
It's
you start
or.
hearing all about Jada's alopecia, which I don't think most people were aware of, unless you were just in that kind of knowledge. Like,
I knew at one point, but I definitely had forgotten until like someone posted a comment. I'm like, Oh yeah, she does.
You'd have to be someone who is already kind of aware of Jada Pinkett Smith on the day to day. You listen to their podcast, something like because if she doesn't really enter your
Red table
your
talk.
world, then you're not going to know that. And that was my first thought too. Was like, well, man, did Chris Rock was he even aware of that? There's some indication that he could have been, that there may be some bad blood, but I don't even want to get into that. Yeah, the thing that we don't understand as everybody's throwing their opinion out there is that the Academy Awards, I don't think you can't know what that's like inside those four walls with those people. I mean, I made a joke earlier, like where their narcissism is like feeding on each other, and it's like literally devouring their own egos and other people's. Like that is such a weird, unique perspective that we can't have. That's a pressure environment for them. We think it's fun. We look at it and think, oh man, that would be awesome. Just me and a bunch of celebrities, right?
And free gift bags.
Free gift bags. But I think you'd be ignoring some very human things that go along with being in an environment like that. First of all these people are, most of them are probably pretty narcissistic. And the worst thing you can do for a narcissist is put them around other narcissists. Because then this battle starts happening, whether internal, external, whatever, where like you're getting nervous that other people are more beautiful in the room,
And I mean, every year you see like these tiny moments that you can tell people are getting upset. Well, especially like if the music's playing during the acceptance speech, like how dare you cut me off during this? Or like some of those lesser awards, people are like, it's such finally to be recognized for this. Like no one ever said thank you to these people before in their lives. And I'm like, I know that's not the case.
Well, so the reactions start pouring in. Judd Apatow is the first one that I see where people are just jumping on him. He says in a now pretty quickly deleted tweet, he said he could have killed him. That's pure out of control rage and violence. They've heard a million jokes about them in the last 3 decades. They are not freshmen in the world of Hollywood and comedy. He lost his mind. End tweet.
Okay, so for a little bit early on, after the slap happened, there's confusion if it was a punch or a slap. It looks like Will starts off with a fist and then he changes his mind to, I'm just going to open hand slap him.
Yeah.
And that tells you there's at least some thoughts that are happening. That it's not a pure uncontrolled rage. And it's not like Will Smith is Bruce Lee. His hands aren't lethal weapons.
Well, right. Anybody that has a fighting background knew what that was. So he comes with the big sweeping from the side and he slaps, which is meant to be disrespectful. He's trying to disrespect him in front of everybody.
What did the 5 fingers say to the face?
Exactly. Because if he wanted to hurt him, he played Ali's. He
did.
He had to train for that movie. You go up and you throw a straight punch right into his face, and that would have knocked him down. He'd went down. Because he was clearly not ready for anything like that. He was leaning forward with his big smile on his face. He had no idea that was coming. So what he did, it was a slap, and it was meant to disrespect him in front of everybody. Judd
could have killed him.
I suppose if he had a heart attack from the pressure, from the moment, his blood pressure spiking or something. I don't know.
Like
out of control rage and violence. Was it? No. He took like 20 steps to get there.
And he walked back.
Yeah. It was clearly not out of control.
Like he would have just kept pummeling if it was out of control. Come on, Judd.
Yeah, it was
which you can tell Judd does not direct the action flicks.
Well, and he's leaping to the biggest extreme, which we're going to come back to in a little bit, because that's a tendency that a lot of people have to do.
So my initial reaction, Will Smith pulled a Kanye. And that's where I would have left it.
Yeah, he had a momentary loss of reality of where he was at.
He's like, I'm going to go up there and stop this right now.
Yeah, and I have an explanation for all of this that's biblical that I'm going to get into later.
Bible.
Somebody replied to someone else's tweet at Relaxy777 said, as my 6-year-old said this morning, in a world full of Will Smiths, be a Zelensky. And then he put the Ukrainian flag. I'm just like, what is happening? I mean, listen, I don't want to get too far into the Zelensky stuff, but if you don't understand that there's propaganda coming out of Ukraine and Russia right now, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, because I mean, now there's articles coming out about Zelensky's background, and I'm like,
there's a lot of signs that he is a very proficient politician, just like ours.
Yes, where I might not want to lift him up on the highest pedestal, not the scum of the earth, but
we're so extreme. We've got to either elevate people or bury people. Peter Bogasian says if Chris Rock had even been a basic proficiency in jiu-jitsu, he could have easily choked him out. Well, yeah, but he's Chris Rock.
Yeah.
I mean, Steve Schmidt, who has a blue check mark next to his name. I don't know who he is, but he's got a lot of followers. The Oscars have demonstrated the power of group psychology. The room is a hermetically sealed bubble where all mores can be eradicated in a second. He's talking about social values, social norms would be a good other word for that. Do you want to understand how Trump happened? Watch the Oscars and the crowd reaction. The pull to belong is very powerful. I happen to agree with this tweet.
Yeah.
He's what we were talking about, that there's some layers to the Academy Awards being inside those four walls that maybe we don't understand. That part's very understandable. Should be. And he's right. That's why Trump happened.
And if you look at, again, years past, like the moments that get applauded and there's definitely some more extreme political leanings. Like I'm thinking back to Joaquin Phoenix's acceptance speech for his Academy Award, and he's going off about you should be a vegan, and everyone's just standing up and applauding, and it's its own think tank, and it feeds off of each other, and you have to be this outspoken version of a person, where most people it's well, I think this and I'll share it with my friends, but by George, I as a celebrity, my voice needs to be heard.
Yeah,
I have this platform. Yeah. I have to save the world.
Yeah. Richard Hanania said, wait, they just let him stay at the show and win an award and justify what he did in his speech? First of all, we hadn't got to that part yet.
We have not.
10 minutes after this happens, Will Smith wins the award for Best Actor.
About time, by the way. At
this time, I am fully forward in my seat. Because one, I'm like this guy. I am incredulous that he's still there. How did that happen?
Well, I know how.
Because they knew he was going to win, I guess? I don't know, but that's crazy.
It is because my dear friend, Denzel Washington and Tyler Perry came over and de-escalated the situation.
Yeah, they did. We'll get to Denzel later. This Richard Hanania says, wait, they just let him stay at the show and win an award and justify what he did in his speech. Can you imagine if Will Smith was a white guy? Here we go. Twitter would be all, if he were black, they would have shot him. This is white privilege. I mean, on one hand, he's got a point. On the other hand, do we have to do this every time?
Although what
about if it's this? What about this?
I did have the thought of, if Chris Rock was a white man, no one would have beef. No one would have beef with Will.
Shockingly, there was a lot of people that didn't have beef anyways.
Yeah, there shouldn't be. Like, we have blown this up way out of proportion.
Yeah. I hate the whataboutism.
Yeah.
Well, what about if this was a white guy? Well, he's not. It's not.
What if this was two women?
And white privilege. No, listen. They're all privileged. Everyone in that room, black, white, Asian, gay, transgender, everyone in that room is privileged. Everyone.
Yeah, I can't remember which person I follow on Twitter. They were sitting in the nosebleed section of the Oscars. And like, they're not a huge celebrity, but yet they are well off. They're not worried about where their food's going to come from or what if their mortgage is going to be paid for.
They've given out awards to child molesters and didn't kick them out and didn't take the awards away. They're privileged. They're all privileged.
Yes.
So I don't want to hear it.
Like, there's a couple of tweets. If we get to those, I have responses.
The only whataboutism that you can say here is if I walked up and slapped Cody right now, he'd press charges, they'd take me away. In cuffs. Book me.
Hopefully Cody is on his best behavior that day and is probably thinking, what would Jesus do? So then Dave's not in jail.
Peter Coffin has 31,000 followers on Twitter. YouTuber. He said, so Jada is an abusive partner is what the world just learned.
There is a lot of people that are like toxic woman, and they point back to things that have happened past couple of years, things revealed on her Facebook talk show thing, and again, ultimately, the final decision comes down to Will Smith.
Right. Like, it's like at all costs, we must absolve personal responsibility.
And
like, I'm not saying that she hasn't, that there aren't things that have that broken will that she's done. Listen, I break my spouse in some ways. We break our children. This is what happens. We're all broken. But with the personal responsibility to not go slap some dumb comedian still on me.
Yeah. And again, we don't know that. And so don't be tearing down people and leaping everything on Jada.
Oh, man. This one was amazing. Just a reminder that if Will Smith had slapped Betty White for a joke she made, she easily could have fallen backward, cracked her skull, and died of a brain bleed. Same with Bob Saget. Violence is never okay. I'm team take it back. That's Emily Porter, MD. I mean, well, yeah, I suppose if he'd have knocked Chris Rock a certain way, he could have fallen back and cracked his skull too. What is your point? What is...
Chris Rock could have had a brain aneurysm and died on the stage without Will Smith touching him.
Also, a meteor could have dropped through the ceiling and it struck Will on the way.
Why did we have to go to Betty White and Bob Saget so quickly? How dare you? How dare you?
How dare you, Dr. Porter? How dare you? Shame on you for invoking Betty White.
And Bob Saget.
Too soon. Too soon.
Way too soon, especially since the Oscars did not honor Bob Saget.
Ben Shapiro, famous political Republican talk show guy. They need to send Will Smith to move with his auntie and uncle in Bel Air. Low-hanging fruit.
That was too easy.
Too easy, Ben. Sorry. That tweet sucks.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's not funny. You got to come with more than that. For instance, I put on my social media right after it happened. I mean, he is born and raised. He is West Philadelphia, born and raised, y'all.
Yeah.
What did you think was going to happen? You know, at least I made a joke about his past and the culture of where he comes from.
Yeah.
Although I wouldn't make it to his face because I wouldn't want to be slapped. Because apparently you don't make jokes to Will.
You don't. So there was a tweet that Mark Hamill.
Oh yeah.
Do you have it?
I don't know if I do or not. I may. Yeah, I actually do. No, I don't. I don't have it. But yeah, he tweeted out something good.
Yes,
as well.
And it was on kind of the same line as a lot of the other celebrities. Oh, the tweet that it quoted. I have the response saved. Oh, this was the worst thing that happened in Oscars history. That was the tweet that a bunch of celebrities were using that hashtag. And Mark Hamill used it as well. And so someone responded, Raphael Shumanov. I'm probably butchered his last name. I'm sorry, Raphael. So the Oscars was where a Native American woman was booed while asking for equality, where blackface and yellowface was celebrated, where Michael Moore was booed for trying to stop genocide in Iraq, and child rapists were given awards. Can we not do this?
Yeah.
And then someone else tweeted, and I didn't save this one, but they said, if Will Smith gets his award removed, you better come after Harvey Weinstein's 81 awards. 81. Yeah. And that room, a lot of people knew what he was doing.
Right. Yeah, before the public did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Get out of here, you righteous jabronis.
A lot of politicians had things to say, which, I mean, you just know that more dumb is coming. Megan McCain says, and people say politics is chaos. Stop, Megan. Just stop. Am I the only person who thinks politicians shouldn't get Twitter accounts? That they shouldn't be allowed to have social media?
Is she a politician, though?
I mean, sort of.
Nowadays she's more known for being on The View.
But even if
from The View,
even if if you're just a talking head about politics, you're basically a politician.
Okay.
Matthew Dowd, a former Democratic candidate for lieutenant governor in Texas, and again, I can't tell you how much I despise whataboutism. For all those defending Will Smith's violence and assault on Chris Rock, would you have the same reaction if Amy Schumer had made the joke and Smith hit her? Well, no, I wouldn't. Because, and this will get me in trouble because she's a girl.
Yeah.
And I was raised that men shouldn't touch girls in any way like that. So no, it would be a totally different reaction. But it's all so crazy. The whataboutism's got to stop. Well, what about if it was this? Here's the problem. The annoyance at what people are doing is founded, right? People are jumping to an extreme. And yeah, I get it. But then when you say what about, you're ruining it. You're ruining your point. You're just stomping on it.
My biggest beef with most of the tweets, especially the ones from celebrities, was that they're like, oh, this is just the worst thing that could have ever happened. And there's also people that were like, my kids were watching. What will they now do? And I'm like, either you just happen to tune into the Oscars accidentally, because every movie that was nominated shows worse than that. You do not get to talk about a man just slapping someone when most of the films had people getting shot, killed, doing whatever else, making fun of people, being rude. There's so much, even within the comic book, funny movies, there's a lot of violence. Your kids, you need to raise them underneath a rock.
What am I supposed to tell my kids? I don't know, but tell them something. I mean, are you not having conversations with your kids about what they see in the world? Because you should be.
be a good parent and say, we don't respond to people with violence. An eye for an eye is not the way to go. Turn the other cheek. Those sorts of things.
Yeah. Representative Ayanna Pressley, a Democrat from Massachusetts, deleted a tweet where she praised Smith for defending his wife. Now, Ayanna Pressley struggles with alopecia.
Oh, yeah.
Also shaves her head, or she appears to be bald. But again, when I saw it, I was like, no, come on. Like, what? People say mean things to me all the time. And how many more are going on where out of my range where I know they're saying mean things? I can't just go up and slap them. That is not right. Why are we okay with this? Why? The idea that we can justify this now. There's just this righteousness going on, and everybody does it. This self-righteousness, and this is what I want to get at, because I think this is important. We're at a place in this society where we love to point the finger and we love to say that person is terrible and they deserve what's coming at them. And we don't even realize where this comes from in us. It comes from a place where if we label someone bad, there's a motive. It means we get to be good. So we get to lift ourselves up when we tear someone else down.
We get to be a judge.
Yeah. And it's all based in this self-righteousness. But in order to keep that self-righteous train moving, we got to keep labeling other people bad. And that's where we're at. The whole culture, the whole society we live in now is all about pointing fingers and saying this person's bad and this person's bad and they should never work again and they should get canceled. And if you were above looking in, you'd be like, man, all these people are terrible. We're all bad.
And that should be, I think, where we end at as a culture viewing this situation, is that we're all bad. What one pastor, John Onwuchekwa, said, again, I don't know how I find all these individuals with cool last names. What Will Smith did last night was totally inexcusable and completely understandable. I think those roads intersect. I'm surprised at how many takes make it seem like we have to pick a side. Maybe that's a product of the polarized age we're living in. There's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, I think he gets it right there, too, with saying that there's an intersection between, he should be upset for his wife, but also you stop short of that. This is a good place to segue into the Bible. Now, we're not just fans of pop culture. We're also ministers. So there's a part of the Bible I want to read here right now on the podcast. It's actually in Paul's letter to the Ephesians, the church in Ephesus. And he says this to them in chapter 4. He says, be angry and do not sin. So what you glean from that is that you can be angry, that anger is not a sin. Your feelings aren't a sin. And that would surprise a lot of people, I think. I think some people would be like, well, being angry is bad. Like, no, being angry is not bad. And I'm going to tell you why. Because it's exactly what that guy just said. Because it points us to what's right. You're angry because you feel like something was wrong.
It's just staying in that angry place is not good.
Yeah, Chris Rock made a joke. And it was a joke that kind of picked on maybe a condition he wasn't completely and totally aware of. Maybe he was. We'll never know. And it made Will angry for his wife taking the brunt of that joke. And it should make him angry because it points him to saying, that's not right. He shouldn't have done that. But then listen to what Paul says. He says, don't let the sun go down on your anger. So he says, be angry, but do not sin. And don't let the sun go down on your anger. He says, get rid of it before the end of the day. And this was what fascinated me about this whole thing, because we watched these verses play out. And I'm gonna explain this. Don't let the sun go down on your anger, and don't give the devil an opportunity. Okay, so this is crazy. Will Smith, he had to have taken 15 steps to get to Chris Rock. 15 steps. He was angry and he took 15 steps. It took a while for him to get there. It seemed like it took forever. He got up there and he slapped him. Don't give the devil the opportunity to do what? To do what, Paul? What does Paul say? His very next words, let the thief no longer steal. Okay, so this is where we get into some really religiosity type stuff here. If you're not familiar with the Bible, you're not going to be familiar with that. The devil, the one we call the devil or the enemy, he comes to steal, kill, and destroy.
Yes.
That's what the Bible says. And Paul says in this moment that your anger isn't a sin, but if you don't give your anger away, if you don't let it go, that you're going to give the devil an opportunity to steal something from you. Now, this is amazing, Cody, because not 10 minutes later, Will Smith wins the award for Best Actor. Now, we got to unpack all of this, okay? Because if you're under a certain age, you don't know who Will Smith really is. I do, because he came from my generation. He was a joke. Mm-hmm. He was a goofy rapper who didn't curse and he kind of got made fun of for that.
Yeah.
West Philadelphia, born and raised on the playground was where I spent most of my days. Parents just don't understand. I mean, he was goofy. He was a goofy dude, and he was seen as kind of like a comedic side act, right? Then he gets lucky, and he gets this sitcom, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and people love it. But he's still kind of a joke, right? He's got a famous sitcom, but he's still kind of, hell yeah, he's the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Then he's in a couple movies, and he's in Independence Day. And he blows up, right? He becomes like an action star.
Yeah.
He becomes one of the biggest box office draws. He's like, his movies do tons of money. But you know what? He still isn't respected as an actor.
No.
Mm-mm. You don't put Will Smith in that time in the same breath as Tom Hanks, Robert De Niro,
DiCaprio.
Even DiCaprio, who's a younger guy. Mm-hmm. He's still not that. So to understand, and then he goes on, he makes like Pursuit of Happiness. We see that he can act, that he's got the chops for this, and he can do this. Then
Concussion.
Concussion. Then he makes this movie about the Williams sisters and their dad, and he plays Richard Williams, which he's wonderful in, by the way. I mean, that movie, his performance was so good. This should have been the moment for him, this pinnacle moment. Imagine, it takes days to climb Everest, right? Imagine making it to the night before the last day where you're going to summit and you have a heart attack and die. And you never get that joy, that moment, the pinnacle moment, the peak. Best actor, the tip top of his profession, respect forever till the day he dies.
Yeah.
He's the best. He's right up there with Tom Hanks and all the greats.
He gets to say, I have an Academy Award, which I did not realize Samuel L. Jackson did not have one until this past weekend. And so he would have accomplished something that even Samuel L. Jackson hadn't accomplished.
It should have been a night about this joy of him reaching the pinnacle of what his life is, the glory of that. And you saw on live television the devil given an opportunity to use his anger to take and steal that joy, because it's gone. That night will never be about him being Best Actor. He'll still get to say he won a Best Actor. He'll still be referred to as an Academy Award winner, but the glory and the joy of that night is forever gone because of that moment. That moment where his anger was given opportunity to the devil and stolen. And it's gone. It's just gone forever. That night will always be about the memes, about the slap, the jokes. And it's just gone.
Those memes are out of control.
Yeah. And we watched it play out. We watched scripture play out. And you're probably saying, well, Dave, that seems like the devil wouldn't waste his time on that because Will Smith's probably not even a Christian. Why would he do that? It's like, because the enemy will steal whatever he can from you. He doesn't care if you're not a believer Or if you're a baby believer, if you are a full-on believer, he'll steal what he can. If all he can steal is your joy, he'll take that too. And he did. And that's what's was crazy in this moment, was seeing it. And then he gets up with this acceptance speech. And this blew me away. Blew me away because I knew Denzel was a Christian, but I didn't know he had wisdom like this. Will Smith gets up there in his acceptance speech, and he says that he talks about Denzel came in and calmed him down after the fact. He came over to him. And Will let us know that Denzel told him the devil comes for us at our highest moments. That's what Denzel told Will. Now, Will, I don't think understood what Denzel was saying, because he said it in the context of like, yeah, everybody's coming at me. And we circled the wagons. He was like, yeah, the devil's coming at me and I'm repelling. No, I don't think that's what Denzel was telling you, Will. The devil just came for you and he stole your joy. And I didn't mean to like turn this into a sermon, but I can't help it because it just played out right in front of our eyes. It was amazing to see and witness and watch anger give the enemy an opportunity to steal joy. That's what happened.
It is. It happened, and oh my goodness. Like, I had already given Denzel credit for being wise in my head, just because he just seems so calm and thoughtful whenever you get those interviews. And like, I'm glad that Will Smith had that counsel. It would have been nice if someone would have like stopped him from going up on the stage. Still, I will say, from watching the clip on and seeing what the reactions were going to be, like, I really don't care one iota about this incident at all.
Oh, yes.
Could care less. The reactions around the incident were more thought consuming to me than the actual incident itself. Because, I mean, if you watch sports games, you'll several times a season, especially in the NFL, you'll see players start pushing, shoving, hitting, taking off their helmets. I mean, basketball, you'll see it.
Another case of if you've never been in that environment, you don't understand that the environment is part of it.
Yes.
Yeah, go on.
And I mean, it's everywhere, and there's violence, even more extreme violence that we show on the news all the time. And so, like, you could press charges technically, but in most cases, I think law enforcement, if they were able to de-escalate the situation, or it had de-escalated before they even got there, they're not going to waste their paperwork on it. I went directly to what people were thinking in Luke 16:15. Jesus said to them, "You are those who justify yourselves in the sight of men, but God knows your hearts. For that which is highly esteemed among men is detestable in the sight of God." And I mean, like, the extremes that people just keep going to and trying to show, like, hey, I'm on the right side of history. How dare you stand up for someone that made fun of a woman? How dare you stand up for someone that slapped a comedian? How dare you do this, or how dare you think that, or how dare you not take a side? I mean, we just keep elevating ourselves and trying to elevate ourselves and trying to connect, and it's not things that are worth connecting about, and they're not things that are fruitful in their connection. Yes, there's lessons to be learned. Like, okay, Hollywood, if you're really about anti-bullying and you're really about equality and all this stuff, Well, you might not get comedians to do the awards if that's the line that you want to take. You also will want to have some anti-violence stuff for Will Smith to go through in the future. There's several things that you can do. And there's several statements that you can make, but the way that most of Hollywood has reacted, the way that the Twitterverse has reacted, I mean, it's just bananas how much self-righteousness and how much that we are seeking what is meaningful to the hearts of man versus what's meaningful to the heart of God.
Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right. For what it's worth, I don't hold Will Smith's acceptance speech against him because I still think he was in fight or flight mode, man. Like his emotions are bubbling over. You could see it even after he's done getting the award. He's back in his seat. Sir Anthony Hopkins comes out, kind of chides him a little bit. He kind of chides him and in a joking manner. And they showed Will and he kind of had his eyes were real big and watery and he had that fake laugh. Like, like, and you could still see like in that moment, I thought, man, he's ashamed. He's ashamed of what he's done. He's trying to process everything still. And I think once he got that time to process, he was contrite. Mm-hmm. And Chris Rock, it's come out as we're recording this tonight. There's things coming out because Chris Rock had been kind of silent. But Wanda Sykes was on the Ellen DeGeneres show earlier today, apparently. And they said a lot of things like Wanda and Amy Schumer both said they were traumatized, which, come on. Just stop. But she did say this. I found this interesting, that Chris Rock came up to her that night because her and Amy Schumer were hosting together. They were the hosts. And he said, I'm so sorry to them. And Wanda was like, well, why are you apologizing? What are you apologizing for? He said, this was supposed to be your night. You and Amy and Regina, and y'all were doing such a good job. And now I'm just so sorry because it's going to be about this.
And he's right.
And he was right, yeah. And so I think both of these guys have been contrite. I'm not nearly as worried about them because I understand we're all broken.
Yeah.
And that was just brokenness all around. Yeah, what scares me is our societal response, okay? Now, you brought up something interesting in that the anti-bullying thing. Here's the problem. We go to these extremes, and instead of teaching kids, hey, don't be cruel. Don't be cruel to other kids. Cruelty is not okay. Mm. Instead of teaching them, we instead taught them that words were enemies, that words were weapons.
Yeah.
That words can do damage and hurt, and that words were violence. And once we started down that path, this is the logical conclusion. Because if words are violence, then we'll repay that with actual violence.
Yeah. Now, I will say that I think for some of us that it's a lot easier for us to go to the words is violence route than to explain how words said with cruelty behind them, and being aware that you don't know what everyone that you're talking to has gone through.
Mm.
So Chris Rock may not have known that Jada suffers from alopecia, but if he had stopped and thought, he might have thought, well, there is a lot of black women that are concerned about the way people talk about their hair. I probably shouldn't even touch this one. Or I don't know who was a victim of assault. I shouldn't make any Jeffrey Epstein jokes or whatever. Like, being aware. I get it that it's just really tough for us to know what that line is, because for the most part, I think that everyone that presents usually does things just in jest, in fun, and that it isn't supposed to be this end all, like I'm trying to tear you down. It's, we're having fun. Laugh at yourself, laugh at others. Let's move on.
Yeah. I will say that I think another logical conclusion of words as violence are that sometimes words are just words. And if words are violence, then you're not going to account for if people meant to use it in that fashion. So for instance, let's take the pronoun thing. Because pronouns by design are not meant to be non-specific. They're meant to be like, okay, I don't know who Cody is. I may not even know Cody's name. So I use a pronoun, that guy, him, he, because I'm not familiar with you. And so it's unfamiliarity that makes me have to use a pronoun.
Yes.
That's what pronouns are. But now we make them a specific thing. And again, words as violence this is the problem is I don't know you. And if I'm out in the real world, I can't check your Twitter account to see what pronouns you want me to use. And so just because if I'm unfamiliar with you, I might call you him or her, and I may not refer to you as a they if you identify as multiple personas. It's not because I'm trying to do violence on you. It's because I don't know you. That's the problem.
And we also have to be willing to learn to accept apologies, because there's going to be times that I accidentally say something that might hurt your feelings. Yeah. And it's because I don't know you, or because I wasn't aware that was a trigger for you. And we are so quick to cast people off.
Yeah. And I think we desperately need to get back to a place where words are just words. Again, we need to get away from this, because here's the thing. This utopian world that kind of the woke crowd, whether they know it or not, that's what they're arguing for. It's like, hey, if we all just tell each other what pronouns we want to be, this is how I want to be treated, this is how I want to be referred to, we can all do that. This utopian perfect world that you're envisioning will never happen on this side of God or the creator or someone doing something, because we are broken. It's like racism. Well, we got to end racism. Well, you can't do that, because some people are so broken that they're going to be bitter and hateful, and you can't change that. It just is.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's no utopia waiting at the end of a rainbow. It's just not there. And so we got to get away from this place where we're teaching our kids that words are weapons. No, you have to teach them the opposite, that words can't do anything to you. They're just words.
And if they do hurt your feelings, have a conversation.
Yeah.
Dialogue's important.
Maybe we stop short of slapping each other.
Yes. Like, hey, Chris, let's stop that.
That's the crazy thing I'm betting that Will Smith and Chris Rock will be just fine moving forward.
That's what my friend Sean P. Diddy Combs says.
But people arguing about who's more at fault, not them. They'll continue to hate each other. Mm-hmm. We're in a weird place.
And yeah.
George W. Bush and Barack Obama love each other. But people that voted for those two men hate each other.
And it's so weird that Michelle is like, oh, George is such a great guy. And they do photos together. He gives her candy when they see each other.
And do you know why? Do you know why they like each other? Because they had a relationship. They know each other. This is the missing ingredient, is we can't expect people to change before we have a relationship with them. That's something that Christians should know. They don't do it very well. We don't do it very well. We do the same thing as the rest of the world. We point our finger and say, you need to change. And we don't understand that what our own belief system says is that love precedes life change. Love, relationship. You have to care about someone before they'll listen to you. That's just the way it works. And so maybe what we can learn from all this is if one day Chris Rock and Will Smith are kicking it together and are fine with each other, maybe we can say, hey, the lesson from this isn't that a slap will change anything, that your justice you got, your vengeance or whatever you want to call it didn't change anything, but it was relationship that did. And maybe that's what we can take away from it someday. But we'd have to have closure first. But y'all got to stop with the hot takes. The hot takes. There's no right and wrong here. Everyone's broken.
Multiple shades of wrong.
Yeah.
A savior that loves and shows forgiveness and grace.
We talked almost exactly 1 hour about the slap.
Haven't even gotten to the other celebrity that went wild this week.
Yeah, we're just going to leave it off. It's too much. Ezra Miller, you get put off till next week.
And then you get a hot take from this guy.
Oh, man. I'm so scared for the new Flash movie. That's not going to get made, is it? They're never going to finish that thing.
I thought after his incident in Russia that it was off the books.
He's not okay,
But
is he?
everyone completely forgot about that thing and we moved on.
Am I the only one sitting here being like, man, he needs help. Ezra Miller needs help. He's not okay.
Well, I'm just saying somehow he got to keep his role in Fantastic Beast and John Depp got to give it up.
Yeah, we better not get into that because we could talk a long time on that. I mean, yeah, that dude's at the peak of his career and not losing roles. And apparently just bonkers.
Potentially.
Allegedly. Yeah, we should throw that in there. I don't know Ezra. And I'd love to have him on the show. I'd love to have a conversation with him. Ezra Miller, you're officially invited to appear on Pop Culture Pastor.
We'll tag you.
He will hopefully ignore us. We might be biting off more than we can chew there. Just, maybe. All right. Anything else you want to add to this weird week?
No.
Yeah, let's just leave it at that. Hey, everybody. We appreciate you so much for listening. Please follow us on Facebook or Twitter. We've got a lot of things coming down the pike, and you're going to miss them if you're not on there. We're going to be selling some swag packs here in the near future in the next week or two so we can raise some money to go to Planet Comic Con in Kansas City. If you come to Planet Comic Con in Kansas City, April 22nd through the 24th, come look for Pop Culture Pastor's booth. We will be there. We will have one spot. We will be very small because we're not selling anything.
We're selling everything.
We're giving away light for free.
Well,
free hugs.
This is a steal of a deal for you if you're there.
Oh, come get your free hugs from Cody. All right, everybody, have a great week. We'll see you next time on Pop Culture Pastor.
See you in the next Pop Culture Pastor.